We now have a vocabulary for describing graphs, but our next step is going to be to come up with some kind of tools to describe the change of graphs numerically. We often describe trends in graphs by a line's rise and its run. The rise of a graph is the change as a line runs along in its y value. So rise here is how far the line increases over a certain amount of time. We call this the difference in y values. Difference in y. The run is the change in the x values. So that's the run there. How far along horizontally we've gone in a certain section. We'll call this the difference in x. Remember that we always read graphs from the left to the right. That means a run is always positive. But a rise can be either positive or negative. And when it's negative, we can really call this a fall. And so here's a couple of examples. This first line on the left, as the line rises to the right, that's a positive rise, because we're reading from the left to the right. But the other line on the right, we'll see the line drops as you read from the left to the right. So this is a negative rise or a fall. Estimating can help us calculate a rise or a run. And that's because sometimes our lines aren't going to land on perfect grid lines. So, for example, let's calculate the rise and run of the Misty Mountain snowfall. So what I usually like to do is I like to break down the rise and run first so that I can visualize it. Just got to make sure I get this line nice and straight going all the way down to the x-axis. And so there's my run is going from the left to the right, and my rise is going up and down. So let's start with the rise. The rise, we can see it begins at 0 and it climbs up to one grid line past 10, so that would be 11. So the rise is going to be 11 minus 0, which is 11 inches. The run goes from, again, starting at 0, goes to just after 5. So this is where we're going to have to do a little estimate for the run. The run is about, I would say, 5.2 hours. So there's our rise and our run. So let's do one more example. What's the rise and run of Bill's bank balance between April and August? So you notice in this case, we're given some values. We're given April and August. So on the x-axis, we see the months listed. So we're told that we want the rise and run between April and August. So let's identify those points on the line. So what we want is we want the rise and run between those 2 points. Well, so we can start by seeing that our rise is actually going to be a fall. We drop in y value from 600 down to 400. That's our rise, which should be a negative number. And then our run is the distance going from April to August in terms of the number of months. There's our run. So let's start with the rise. We can either just eyeball this and figure out the difference between 600 and 400, or if we want, we can use subtraction to help us calculate something like this. So one way we could do this is, because we're using the y values, you always subtract the second y value or the later y value from the first. So in this case, the later y value is 400, and you subtract away the original y value, and that's going to give us negative 200 or negative $200, so I'll add a dollar symbol. That's the rise, or in this case, the fall from April to August. Then we need the run, and the run in this case, the easiest way to get the run is probably just going to be count the number of months between April and August. So that's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And there's our rise and our run.